Thich Nhat Hanh's The Miracle of Mindfulness. This book actually started as a letter to a colleague.
Oh, really?
Yeah, during a really tough time, actually,
Wow.
during the Vietnam War.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it wasn't originally meant to be like, some big philosophical treatise. It was about finding peace, in the middle of chaos,
Mm.
which I think we can all relate to.
Absolutely. And that's what makes his approach so practical. It's not about, escaping reality, but being present
Right,
right here, right now, even when things are tough.
right. And he doesn't just talk about meditation either.
Yeah.
He uses these really relatable examples, like, washing the dishes, having a conversation, even dealing with, like, a screaming toddler,
Right.
like things we all experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that because it's like, instead of wishing those moments away,
Yeah.
he's like, no, we can actually find ways to be fully present in them. Have you ever noticed how, like, when you're really focused on a simple task, like even washing the dishes,
Uh-huh.
your mind kind of quiets down.
It's like those everyday moments become like little mindfulness exercises without having to like carve out extra time, It's a real shift in perspective.
It is. He also talks about, the breath as a tool for like find that presence, kind of like an anchor to bring you back to like the present moment.
It's always there with you,
Yeah.
that connection to your body,
Yeah.
to this moment.
Okay, I have to ask about this because it really caught my attention. His perspective on time. It felt almost counterintuitive at first.
Yeah. It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? I mean, so many traditions talk about being present,
Right.
but this book offers a really interesting perspective on what that actually means
Yes.
in our like daily lives.
It's like he's saying that, like, instead of constantly wishing time away, like when you're like stuck in traffic or you're doing some tedious chore,
Yeah.
you can actually find ways to be more present in those moments. And paradoxically, it's like you have more time.
Instead of being this like scarce commodity,
Right.
time becomes something that like we can tap into more fully just by changing our relationship with it.
That's so good.
Yeah.
He also delves into this Buddhist concept of interdependence, which like might sound a bit abstract.
Yeah.
But it really ties into this idea of interconnectedness.
It's the idea that like we're not these isolated individuals,
Right.
but part of like this larger web of existence, like our actions
Yes.
have ripple effects,
Right.
even in ways we might not realize.
And that leads into his discussion of compassion, which we'll
Yeah.
get to in a bit. But first, there's this story he tells. It's like a parable
Okay.
about an emperor that really brings these ideas to life.
I love that. This is one of my favorite parts of the book.
It's amazing how, like, a simple story can be so powerful.
You really are.
So there's this emperor who's, like, obsessed with finding the answers to life's big questions. Like,
Yeah.
when's the best time to do each thing? Who are the most important people to work with? What's the most important thing to do at all times? He wants these, like, grand, sweeping answers, like some kind of ultimate wisdom that he can like build his reign around. He's coming from a place of like, if I can just figure this out,
Right.
then everything will be perfect.
And of course, he assumes the wisest people are in his palace.
Of course.
Right.
So he offers this like huge reward
Yeah.
to anyone who can answer these questions for him.
Oh, can you imagine being a fly on the wall for that?
I bet those palace advisors were sweating.
Oh, I know.
What kind of answers did he get?
Well, the usual mix. Some are saying to meticulously plan his time. Others are saying to go with the flow. Some are saying trust your advisors. Others are saying, the priests. It's like a whole thing. Everyone has their own agenda
Right.
and their own idea of what's right.
And the emperor is just like bombarded with all these different perspectives and all this advice, and he doesn't connect with any of it.
Yeah. In fact, it just makes him more confused, right? It's like that information overload we
Yes.
all experience sometimes.
Sometimes the more answers you get,
Yes.
the further you feel from like the truth.
Exactly. And it makes you realize that sometimes the wisest voices aren't the loudest or the most confident ones,
Right.
but the ones who have learned through experience,
Yes.
through humility.
Which is where the hermit comes in, right?
Yes.
So the emperor hears about this hermit
Mm-hmm.
who lives, up in the mountains,
Yeah.
a man known for his enlightenment and his wisdom. And of course, the hermit is like a total recluse, like avoids people of power,
Right.
which, of course,
Yes.
only makes the emperor more determined to find him.
Of course, because that's like the classic archetype, right?
Yes.
The seeker going on a journey to find the wise sage.
It's like a universal story.
Yeah.
So he, like, disguises himself as a peasant
Wow.
and, like, treks all the way up this mountain to find the hermit determined to get his questions answered.
Determined.
And when he finally finds the hermit, what's he doing?
What?
Just chilling in his garden,
Oh.
tilling the
It's
soil.
like completely present in that moment.
Completely.
Yeah.
And it's such a great contrast to the emperor's state of mind.
I know.
Right. Because he's so caught up in his head.
Totally.
So focused on, like, the future that he's completely missing, like, the present moment.
It's like the wisdom was right there in front of him the whole time.
Yeah.
But he was too busy searching for it to actually see it.
I know.
Which I think is a really powerful insight for all of us, right?
Totally.
Like, we can get so caught up in searching for the answers
Yes.
that we miss the lessons that are right in front of us.
It reminds me of that quote, "The mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master."
Ooh, that's good.
We can get so lost in our thoughts, our plans, our anxieties, that we forget to actually live our lives.
And mindfulness is about training that muscle, you know?
Yes.
That ability to step out of that thought loop and connect with what's actually happening
Yes.
in this moment.
You know, this story reminds me of something else that Thich Nhat Hanh talks about, the concept of beginner's mind.
Oh, yeah.
It's that idea of approaching things, like with a sense of openness and curiosity. Like you're seeing them for the first time.
Yeah.
Without all your preconceived notions.
Without all that baggage.
It's like the emperor had to shed his identity, his preconceptions, to even begin to understand the hermit's wisdom.
To even be open to it, yeah.
And that's something we could all cultivate, right?
Yeah.
In our own lives.
Yeah.
That willingness to, like, let go of what we think we know.
Right.
And approach each moment with fresh eyes.
Like with curiosity.
Okay, so back to our emperor. So he finally finds the hermit, but it doesn't exactly go as planned, right?
Right. What happens?
So the emperor, still in disguise, walks up to the hermit and, like, starts peppering him with his big life questions.
Yeah.
Expecting some, like, profound, you know, life-altering answers.
Right, right. And how does he respond?
Well, he doesn't.
Oh, no.
He just, like, keeps digging in his garden like he didn't even hear him.
Wow. Can you imagine, like, this emperor humbled himself to, like, seek this hermit out?
I know.
And the hermit can't even be bothered to look up from his, like, carrots.
It's almost comical.
It is.
But it's also, like, this powerful lesson in humility.
Yes.
You know, like, the emperor is so used to, like, people hanging on his every word.
Of course.
And here's this hermit who's like, I don't even acknowledge your presence.
Oh.
But the emperor is persistent. So he offers to help the hermit dig.
Oh, wow.
Like, how often do you get an emperor to do manual labor for you?
That's amazing. It's a great reminder that, like, sometimes the best way to learn is to just be of service.
Yes.
You know, to offer your help without expecting anything in return.
So they're, like, digging in the garden.
Yeah.
And the emperor keeps, like, trying to get the hermit to answer his questions.
Uh-huh.
But the hermit's, like, just deflecting, you know, like a true Zen master.
Yeah.
He's teaching through experience, not just words.
It's like he's creating the conditions
for
the emperor to have his own insights.
Exactly.
Rather than just handing him answers on a silver platter. Right?
And then this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, what happens?
As they're, like, working, they hear someone running toward them. And it turns out to be this wounded man who's, like, desperate for help.
Oh, no.
And suddenly, the emperor's, like, big philosophical questions, they just seem to, like, fade into the background.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There's this, like, immediate need.
Yes.
Right in front of him. And he, like, springs into action.
He forgets all about his quest for wisdom.
Totally.
And he just focuses on helping the stranger.
He tends to the man's wounds, uses his own clothes for bandages, and, like, spends the entire night caring for him.
Wow. So what's the lesson here? Are we supposed to, like, forget about searching for meaning and just help people in need? Like, what's...
Well, I don't think it's quite that simple.
Okay.
Remember, like, Thich Nhat Hanh, he emphasizes mindfulness, like, in everything we do.
Right.
Even the most, like, you know, mundane tasks. The emperor's transformation, it happened because he was, like, forced to be present.
Right.
In that moment.
Right.
To, like, set aside his own agenda and truly see, like, the needs right in front of him.
To just respond, yeah.
He was no longer, like, lost in his thoughts, his anxieties about the future, he was fully engaged.
Yes.
In the present moment, responding to what life was presenting him.
I love that.
And that's where the real learning happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't about getting the right answers to his questions.
Yeah.
It was about, like, having an experience that, like, shifted his entire perspective.
It's like that saying, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it.
Right. Oh, that's true.
The emperor, he needed to step outside of his usual way of thinking, his need to, like, control everything, to find the wisdom he was seeking.
And it's interesting, this idea of control, it comes up a lot in the book.
Yeah, he does. He talks about how we often create suffering for ourselves by clinging to things we can't control, right?
Yes.
Outcomes, other people's opinions, even our own thoughts and feelings.
And mindfulness is about recognizing that we have a choice in how we respond to those things. We can either, like, get swept away by our reactions, or we can pause, breathe, and choose a different path.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so back to our story. The next morning, the emperor wakes up, and he remembers his mission.
Okay.
Yeah. He's got an empire to run.
Yeah.
But then he sees the wounded man still sleeping peacefully.
Okay.
And he remembers why he stayed.
And here's another twist.
Oh, tell me.
The wounded man wakes up, right?
Okay.
Overcome with gratitude.
Yeah.
And asks for the emperor's forgiveness.
Oh, no. Why?
Because it turns out he was actually the emperor's enemy.
Oh, wow.
And had planned to kill him.
Talk about a plot twist.
I know, right. So not only did the emperor, like, save his enemy's life, but he also gained, like, a powerful ally.
Wow.
In the process. It's a perfect example of how compassion can break down.
Yes.
Even the deepest seated animosities, right?
Totally.
By seeing the humanity in someone, even someone we might perceive as an enemy.
Right.
We open up this possibility for, like, connection and healing.
Which is something Thich Nhat Hanh emphasizes, like, throughout the book.
Absolutely.
That compassion isn't just this, like, nice fuzzy feeling.
Yeah.
It's like this powerful force for transformation, both personally and, like, globally.
It can change the world. I love that.
So after this, like, profound experience, the emperor, feeling like he's learned more in one night than in his entire reign,
I bet.
he goes back to the hermit and he asks him the 3 questions again.
He does.
He does. He's, like, hoping for some kind of, like, summary, you know, like some words of wisdom to, like, sum up this incredible experience.
He's still looking for that, like, external validation.
Yes.
That confirmation that he's, like, gotten it right.
And what does the hermit say?
What?
He basically says, dude, you already have your answers.
I love it.
He points out that, like, the most important time is now. The most important person is whoever you're with. And the most important pursuit is to, like, make that person happy.
It seems so simple.
It does.
But when you really think about it, it's, like, incredibly profound.
It really is.
And it connects back to everything we've been talking about, right?
Yes.
Being present in this moment, recognizing our interconnectedness, and cultivating compassion as, like, a way of life. These aren't just, like, abstract concepts. These are principles we can live by.
Yes.
Like, moment to moment.
And it's interesting, this idea of, like, making the person you're with happy. It's not about, like, being a people pleaser or, like, sacrificing your own needs.
Right.
It's about, like, approaching each interaction with this spirit of, like, generosity and kindness.
And that comes back to this idea of right action that Thich Nhat Hanh talks about. Acting from a place of awareness and compassion rather than from, like, ego or attachment to outcomes.
Okay. So we've talked about, like, the emperor's journey, but, like, how do we actually cultivate this kind of mindfulness in our own lives? Like, this book isn't just stories.
Exactly,
There are actual techniques that we can use.
Absolutely. And one of the most fundamental practices is cultivating awareness of the breath. He actually provides, like, several specific breathing exercises.
He does.
In the book.
Like the one called Following the Breath. I found that one incredibly helpful.
Oh, me too.
It's, like, such a simple practice.
Yes.
But it can be so grounding.
It really can.
Can you, like, walk us through it a bit? I'm sure some of our listeners might not be familiar.
Yeah, of course. It really is as simple as it sounds. You just find a comfortable position, maybe close your eyes if you'd like, and you just turn your attention to your breath.
Okay.
Just notice, like, the natural rhythm of each inhale and exhale. You know, that gentle rise and fall of your chest or belly. There's no need to, like, force it or change your breathing in any way.
Right.
Just observe it with a sense of curiosity and acceptance.
And what's amazing is how quickly, like, that simple act
I know.
can, like, calm a busy mind.
It's like you're giving your mind a focal point,
Yes.
something to come back to whenever it starts to wander.
Right. And he talks about how, like, at first, our minds might resist this.
Oh, yeah.
We're so used to being caught up in thoughts and plans and worries
Yes.
that, like, just sitting with our breath
Totally.
can feel almost impossible.
Oh, absolutely. He even calls it like monkey mind.
Yes.
That feeling of our thoughts like jumping all over the place.
I love that analogy.
It's so true.
But he emphasizes, like, it's not about, like, stopping our thoughts altogether.
Right.
Which is, like, probably impossible.
Right. It's more about like gently guiding our attention
Yes.
back to the breath whenever we notice it's wandered.
It's like training a puppy.
Yes, exactly.
You don't get upset with it for being distracted. You
Right.
just patiently, like, redirect its attention back to you.
Back to you, exactly. And the more we practice this,
Yeah.
the easier it becomes to find that stillness,
Mhm.
that sense of peace within.
Yes.
And from that place of inner calm, that's when we can start to cultivate other qualities, like compassion.
And this is where it all comes together, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about feeling calm
Exactly.
for the sake of feeling calm.
Right.
It's about how that, like, inner peace, like, ripples outwards.
Yes,
And, like, affects how we interact.
exactly.
Yeah.
With the world.
Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how cultivating mindfulness naturally leads to greater compassion, both for ourselves and for others.
Because the more present we are,
Yes.
the more aware we become of our own feelings, our own struggles.
Right.
And that awareness, I think, can cultivate like a sense of kindness
Yes.
and understanding
Yeah.
towards ourselves.
And when we can extend that same kindness and understanding to others, even those we might find difficult, that's where real transformation can happen.
Yes.
You know?
It reminds me of that quote from the Dalai Lama.
Oh, I love the Dalai Lama. What is it?
He said, be kind whenever possible.
Okay.
It is always possible.
Oh, I love that. I'm writing that down. It's so easy to get caught up in our own little bubbles, our own perspectives.
Yes.
But mindfulness reminds us that, like, everyone
everyone
is fighting their own battles, carrying their own burdens.
Yeah.
And when we can, like, approach each other with that understanding,
Yes.
it changes everything.
It does.
And it's not about, like, condoning, like, harmful behavior or pretending that everything's okay.
Okay.
It's about recognizing, like, the shared humanity
Yes.
in all of us,
Yeah.
even those who might, like, seem different or difficult.
And Thich Nhat Hanh actually provides some like really practical guidance
he does.
on how to actually cultivate this kind of compassion,
Okay.
even for those we might dislike. He talks about using the breath as a tool for like sending loving kindness.
Okay. That might sound a bit woo-woo to some people,
Might.
but it's actually, like, a very powerful practice.
It is. He suggests like picturing someone you care about, maybe even like a pet, and like feeling that warmth and love in your heart. And then as you breathe in, you imagine sending that same warmth and love to yourself. And then as you breathe out, you imagine sending it out to others, to loved ones, to like neutral people, even to those who you might find challenging.
It's like a way of, like, shifting our energy, our focus
Exactly.
from, like, judgment and separation to, like, connection and compassion.
To oneness.
Yeah.
And the more we practice this,
Yeah.
the more it becomes our natural way of being in the world. It's like we're training our minds to see the good in others, to approach each interaction with a sense of kindness and understanding.
And I think that's, like, a really powerful message,
I agree.
especially in, like, today's world, which can often feel
Oh, I know.
so divided.
Yeah.
Mindfulness reminds us that, like, we're all interconnected,
Yes,
that our actions have ripple effects,
they do.
and that even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
Absolutely. And it's not about, achieving some like perfect state of enlightenment.
Right.
It's about making those small conscious choices.
Yes.
Each day.
To be more present,
Yes.
more compassionate, more connected to ourselves
Yes.
and the world around us.
That's it.
And that's the true miracle of mindfulness, isn't it?
It is.
Like, transformation is available to all of us
It is.
in every moment if we're willing to do the work.
I loved that.
Well, there you have it, your deep dive into mindfulness, inspired by the wisdom of Thich Nhat Hanh, the miracle of mindfulness. We've only scratched the surface, but hopefully you've gained some new insights and practical tools to apply to your own life.
Remember, the real practice begins now. Start by paying attention to your breath, to this moment, and see what unfolds.
And who knows, you might even inspire an emperor or two along the way.